let's make a perfect sized brisket out on the Weber Kettle. Whenever I see a brisket in that 11 and 12 pound range, which isn't often, I will grab it because to me, that's the perfect size for the kettle. The Weber Kettle, any other kettle about that size, a 22 inch. And that's what we have here today. An 11 and a half pound USDA choice brisket. We're just gonna do a little bit of trimming, then we're gonna get it seasoned up with my Smoky Sweet Rub because I want it to go in the refrigerator overnight for all those seasonings to sort of set in. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of trimming here, not a ton. I'm not going crazy on this. Now I've done briskets up to 17 pounds on the kettle before. That's a pretty tight fit, let me tell you. So this size, I just really like it. This over. And again, I'm not going crazy here. There's actually pretty thin cap right here. You can see I already got down through it. And I did a video not that long ago smoking an untrimmed brisket, and gotta tell you, it was pretty darn good. So I'm just not gonna worry a huge amount. Now this is gonna be my first brisket of the winter. So I am gonna do it in 2 different stages. Now it's gonna get the smoke that we want out on the Weber Kettle, but we're gonna finish it inside in the oven. Now, a lot of people do that all the time. They don't worry about continuing to feed fuel out on their grill or smoker once we're wrapped. They'll just bring it inside, put it in the oven. Nothing wrong with that. Usually I like to finish it outside because I just like sitting out by the grill, but it's a little chilly. I mean, I'm not on the East Coast, but it's cold for where I live on the West Coast. So after we get that, say, 4 or 5 hours of smoke out there, get it to the texture and color I like, then we're gonna wrap it in butcher paper and put it in the oven. But that's gonna be tomorrow. We gotta get it seasoned up today. And this is my Smoky Sweet Rub here that I make. Plenty of videos on my channel how to make this. I'll link some below. Also, I'll put the recipe, super simple. I generally don't use a binder if there's good surface moisture, and we do have that here. If you like to use a binder, go ahead. Get our fat side first. I like to do my briskets and other large cuts of meat like pork butt, fat side down. That's just my preference. Get our edges here. Turn this over. Want to get a rack under this so it's not sitting in juices in the refrigerator. So this is going to go in the refrigerator overnight, just soaking in those seasonings. And tomorrow, I will see you out at the Weber Kettle. Good morning. The Weber Kettle is up to temp. My target is 250 degrees today. I have water in a foil pan that I added, and I'm using the Mallory Firewall and the Mallory Cast Iron Grate. After we get our brisket on, we're gonna add some red oak for smoke today. So let's go ahead and get this beautiful hunk of beef on. Bright sun this morning. I'm trying to block it so you can see this beautiful brisket. Get some red oak on. We're gonna get the lid on, let this get smoking. We'll come back in about an hour and we'll check it and see if we need to spritz. It's really chilly today. For California, it's in the 40s. Yeah, so not East Coast cold. And today we're gonna be taking this until we get the color and texture that I'm looking for. That's probably gonna take 4 to 5 hours. Then we'll wrap it, get it inside in the oven and let it finish there at the same temperature, that 250. See you back here in about an hour. All right, we've been going 1 hour. Temp has been holding really steady right around that 250. One of the things with this kettle is I added what's called the smoke hole, which is a kit from S&S Grills. It just allows you to really dial in a temperature. My bottom vent is completely closed on the kettle, and I'm just using the smoke hole. The other thing is the Mallory firewall and the Mallory cast iron grate. Those are huge heat sinks. They hold heat, so the temp doesn't fluctuate. If I take the lid off for a bit, put it back on, that temp really comes back quickly. So that combination of those two Mallory products and the smoke hole from S&S Grills really helps dial in the kettle and keep it there. Let's check our brisket, see how it's doing, see if we need to spritz. Looking good. Oh, it smells great too. Do see a little bit of dryness here, so we are going to go ahead and we're going to spritz, and I'm just using plain water. Get another piece of red oak on here. All right, I'm going to get the lid on, keep smoking. We'll come back and check it in an hour. We're going to do that about every hour until I hit that color and texture that I'm looking for. See you back here in a little bit. We are at the 2-hour mark. Let's take a look at our brisket. And there's always that comment, I wish we had smell-o-vision because man, it smells terrific here. Oh, that is looking really good. We're getting good color and texture there. Definitely want to give it another spritz with some plain water. The way this is looking right now, I think this is going to be a wrap at 4 hours. So we've got a couple hours left to go. I'm going to wait 2 hours now for the next check. I might spritz it in between, but probably not. So I'll see you back here in 2 hours. All right, we have been going 4 hours. I'm 99% sure we're going to be wrapping this now and getting it inside into the oven. Let's take a look first. That has some amazing color on it. Yeah, that is ready to wrap. Now what I'm going to do is get this into a foil pan that has some balled up foil in the bottom of it. It helps keep this up off the bottom of the pan so it's not sitting in any juices that come off, but we can still capture those juices and use them if we want. You see I just have a few pieces of crumpled up foil there. Want to get a temperature probe into the point here, the thickest part. That's going to allow me to get to that target temp that I want of 203 degrees internal. That's just a temperature I pick, 200 to 205. It could be anywhere in there. Could be higher, could be lower. It's really about the tenderness, but at 203, that's when I like to probe for tenderness. All right, this is going inside in the oven, and when we hit 203 degrees, we'll get it out, probe it, and then after that, it's going to rest for 2 hours. We just hit 203 internal. Let's go ahead and probe our brisket for tenderness. Now, if it's not tender, I've already taken the temperature probe out. We're not going to go by temperature anymore. It's just time. I would do 30-minute increments and then check for tenderness again. That's how I do it. So really, we're at the temp we want. It's tenderness. So I'm going to go into the point up here. This is where the point is, where we had our temperature probe. Get through the paper. Yeah, the point is butter. It usually is. Now, let's check the flat. That actually feels pretty good too. So I am happy with that tenderness. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover this with foil, and it's just going to sit on the stovetop for 2 hours to rest. That'll allow it to continue to tenderize, allow it to reabsorb some of the juices, and we are not going to touch it. So in 2 hours, I will see you back here when we unwrap this and slice in and have a taste. This turned out looking gorgeous. Beautiful bark. And one of the things I like to do sometimes is see what the internal temperature is after that 2-hour rest. It's just for interest. Let's see. If you can see that we are still at 159 degrees after 160 degrees after a 2-hour rest. So this brisket is nice and warm. We could have held it even longer, but let's go ahead and slice in. Sometimes I like to separate the flat from the point. Sometimes I just cut straight across. Oh, what should I do? I think I'm going to separate. We're just going to follow this fat seam along here to separate them. That is a juicy point. I'm just going to move this over here. And we got a little bit of a juicelange going. That works for me. Let's cut some flat. Oh, that is nice. I can't wait to try that bark. That looks so good. And if you have juice left over, I got a lot of juice left over here in the pan. Save that. If you have any bits that are a little bit dry, dip it in there. It's great. But now let's cut some point. Now the point runs the opposite direction of grain to the flat. So we're changing it up here. Oh, that is going to be good. Cut a little bit. Let me cut up some flat here. And it's time to taste. Flat first. That is really good, nice and juicy. And that rub, my Smoky Sweet Rub, I use it on a lot of things. I think it really does a good job on brisket. I know some people say sweet on beef. It's just a little bit of the flavor in there. I've used rubs that have a sweet component for years on beef. Always tastes great. Let's try some point. It's really hard to go wrong with the point. So much moisture in there, so much fat. It just brings that flavor right to the forefront. But I got this little barky bit here. I really want to try that. Now that brisket in cook time took just over 9 hours, 4 hours out on the kettle and a little over 5 inside in the oven to get to that 203. 2 hours of rest, so about 11 hours. That's an investment in time, and a brisket is also an investment in money. So give it a good rub, give it some good smoke, give it time to develop tenderness, and definitely let it rest at the end there. It really needs that time. It allows it to finish and allows you to have something that's amazing.